tomorrow, President Biden, it marks the last day of his first year in the Oval Office. He's going to do it with a press conference. It will be his first in months. But it's been a year filled with, as we all know, broken promises. Remember when he said he'd bring COVID to an end? Take a listen.
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. I'm not going to shut down the country. I'm going to shut down the virus. I'm going to shut down the virus. I'm going to shut down the virus. I'll shut down the virus, not the economy.
Well, a year into his presidency, more Americans have died from COVID in this past year than the year before he took office. That's right. Cases and deaths continued to go up in the last month as well. And his so-called experts at the CDC and Dr. Fauci, they have flip-flopped on guidance over and over again and caused nothing but confusion. There's a shortage of tests across the country. I walked into CVS just yesterday. There's a big sign. They don't have tests. And the rollout of therapeutics has been delayed because he's so focused on just getting vaccines and mandates fulfilled. That's it.
That's right. And Sean, he also promised that he would get answers from China on the origins of COVID and hold them accountable. China obviously has not cooperated. I can't say that's a shocker. He said last year that masks would only be required for 100 days. Yet, of course, we're still wearing masks, talking about these N95 masks. And he promised to support essential workers. But, you know, this administration's mandates have forced doctors, nurses, and first responders who are unwilling to get vaccinated to lose their jobs. These are people who are making this decision mostly based on religious exemptions. Another promise that President Biden made was to unify this country. Listen.
And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to see that clip played back tomorrow. He's really been the unifier, hasn't he? He's made villains out of Americans who chose not to get vaccinated, calling it the pandemic of the unvaccinated. I don't really think that's unifying the country. He says he won't be a red state, blue state kind of president. But what about this blatant calling out of red states for their election laws? He and the Democrats have harped on that message, pushing this election lie reform thing that they've got going. I mean, it's just one big divisive thing after another.
And I think that's something that most Americans were hoping he would be successful at, unifying the country. And to your point, he's done the opposite. Here's another big promise that he made. Anybody making less than $400,000 a year will not pay a single penny in taxes. Well, what he meant to say is that they won't see their taxes raised, but that's another broken promise. Inflation is at its highest level in 40 years, as we've discussed many times on this show. And through the roof prices on everything from gas to groceries is putting a major financial strain on low and middle income Americans. And Americans are 7% poorer today than they were when Biden entered office, Sean. I don't think I would call that a policy of success.
No, I mean, amazing. Think about it. I went to a grocery store last night. There was empty shelves of milk, and there were regular empty shelves of groceries, and then the stuff that you can get, it's costing more. It's unbelievable. The list, though, of those promises, it goes on and on. He promised to keep Americans safe. But crime in Democratic-run cities across the country, it's rampant, right? He said he would make the situation on the southern border better and safer. But his reversal of Trump's policies has made nothing but chaos on the border. And oh, by the way, he still hasn't visited the border. Unbelievable. And he said he wouldn't politicize the judicial system, but he has weaponized the Department of Justice. And he appointed Attorney General Merrick Garland, who has labeled concerned parents at school board meetings as domestic terrorists. And another promise he made was to spend every minute of every day to make Americans' lives better. But guess where he's been spending a lot of his time lately, Sean? Delaware. According to a new report, Biden has spent 28% of his first year in office. That's at least part of 101 days in 1 year in his home state of Delaware. Yeah, and it's not just Delaware. Former White House correspondent Mark Knoller tweeted this out before the president spent another weekend away from the White House last weekend. His weekend scorecard, that, according to Knoller, is 26 days in Delaware, 13 at Camp David, 10 at the White House, 2 on foreign trips, and 1 coming in there at Nantucket.
And, should we really be surprised by any of this? I was thinking about this just the other day. This country, especially Democrats, they voted in somebody who campaigned in his basement predominantly for the majority of the time. Obviously, we were in the pandemic, but they let him get away with that. That was his MO. And so we shouldn't necessarily be shocked when this guy isn't appearing or leaving, going back home. I mean, that's where he spent the majority of the campaign.
The lack of accountability, though, it's unbelievable. He talks about he can't make it to the border because he's busy. Nothing's on his calendar, ever. Right? And then he goes to Delaware and just hangs out, and then there's nothing on his calendar there. It's unbelievable. And you do remember how much of a big deal the media made about how much time President Trump spent at Trump properties, which is where he lives, places like Mar-a-Lago. That's where he actually lives. This is the same issue. Biden's going to Biden properties, but no one cares because it's Biden, right? It's different because he's not Trump. Maybe he's trying to hide from reality in those dismal poll numbers. We told you about his miserable poll approval rating over the past week. But now there's more data to add to the list. A brand new Gallup survey shows that 47% of Americans identify as Republicans, while 42% say they're Democrats. That's a big shift from a year ago when 49% said they were Democrats and 40% said they were Republicans. Look at that chart. Unbelievable. Quite a significant shift. Could Biden and his failed policies have something to do with that? I say so.
Well, we're seeing, too, many Democrats not wanting to be associated with him. We saw that when he went down to Georgia. Either he's not progressive enough or, they aren't happy with his stance on certain stuff. I will say one Democrat supporting him is House Majority Whip James Clyburn. He did his best to try and spin the numbers for Biden and urge the president to keep it up. Watch.
He has to stay the course. He is going through a rough patch like the country is. He's going to come out of this on the other end in good shape, I think. When the former president of the United States says that the media, the press, if you please, is the enemy of the people. Come on. Why would we let him say stuff like that and people just yell and cheer and we be quiet about it?
Interesting. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, we talked about this. Biden's going to have his first press conference tomorrow of the year, one of his first press conferences almost ever. Do you think the media haven't been able to get a lot of questions from him? And do you think that they're going to go hard or are they going to go soft? Are they going to kind of filter? Is the administration going to filter through these questions to make sure he's not getting hard questions? Well,
we know this now, that there are going to be 30 members of the press that are going to be questioned, allowed to be in the room. How many get questions? That'll be the real interesting tell in all this. But I think it's going to be interesting because there's a lot of problems that he has. Between the economy, COVID, none of these promises. But it's going to be interesting, as I've always said on the show, where the press comes down on this. So My take is it's not just what Biden, it's going to be whether the press does their job, and I don't have a ton of faith in them.
After the last election, liberty-minded Americans are facing a difficult question. What do we do now? We do have a plan to stop them. This is the only plan that bypasses Biden and Congress to save the republic. Sign the petition at conventionofstates.com.